right? I mean, this is what we do. We suss people out. What is he? Is he a Sufi? Is he a Wahhabi? Is he a Salafi? I mean, this is where we're at. And this is a bad place to be. هُوَ الَّذِي سَمَّاكُمْ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. He has called you Muslim. I'll just give you a really example of how far from the spirit of Islam some of us have gone. When I was in England, Dr. Jamal, somebody played a tape from me in which the man was slandered. And it was a tape sold, you can buy it in Muslim stores, and the man was slandered. And I told the person who had the tape, I said, I know that can't be true, that he didn't. Somebody said that he said something. I said, I don't believe that he said that. When I saw him today, he wanted to ask me, he didn't believe it either, but he wanted to ask me if I was a Habashi, which is a group in Lebanon, and I don't want to go in because I don't like to talk about groups and use their name, but I am definitely not a Habashi. I'm an Amriki. I mean, it's probably better to be a Habashi literally from Ethiopia than I mean, Habash has a blessed land. The Prophet blessed it and prayed on its leader, but I'm definitely not a Habashi from Lebanon. All right, I'm a Muslim from California. But he asked me that because he said somebody called him and said, I think he's a Habashi. And I said, the only way that I could think that somebody even could confer that at all is that even though I pray northeast, it makes more sense to me southeast. But that's just an issue. I don't like to get involved in those things. I mean, alhamdulillah, in the Maliki madhab, you have a huge spectrum of possibility for qibla. The Prophet said in Medina, "Sharriqu wa gharribu," that when you're in Medina, that for the hayd, that you have to go to either east or west when you go to the toilet, indicating that the junub, either facing or having your back, is facing towards the qibla, which is bad adab. But they said this ridiculous thing, and I asked him, and he said, Astaghfirullah, and I knew I just wanted to just hear it from his own mouth and tell him, that I knew that was not true. But this is something Muslims do. We have literally become sussers, outers, and then everybody has to fit into a category, and I don't like to fit in categories. I happen to like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, radiallahu anhu. And I've benefited greatly from his books. I also like Ibn Taymiyyah. There's a lot of people that don't like that. You see, because suddenly the right brain and the left brain, there's a corpus callosum is blocked. And they say, no, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, either you like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali and you don't like Ibn Taymiyyah, or you like Ibn Taymiyyah and you don't like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, but don't tell me you like both of them. You see, and I say, well, alhamdulillah, I like both of them. So tough luck. And this is what Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu said in beautiful poetry, فَقِيهًا وَصُوفِيًا فَكُنْ لَيْسَ وَاحِدًا فإني وحق الله إياك أنصح فذلك قاس لم يذو قلبه تقا وهذا جهول كيف يصلح ذو الجهل. Don't a Sufi, a Faqih and a Sufi, don't be one of them. By Allah, I'm giving you sincere counsel. The first one, the Faqih, is somebody who they haven't tasted taqwa in their heart, if they don't have a technical term called tasawwuf. And he said, and the other one, the Sufi, is ignorant. And how can an ignorant one ever yaslahu? How can he be someone of salah? And in other words, that the inward and the outward have to be joined. The real mu'min is the mu'min who has his outward Islam is intact, his iman is intact, and ihsan is manifesting. And this is a whole and complete human being. But some of us have become so focused on the outward that we've literally forgotten the inward experience of Islam. And really the spirit of Islam is ultimately وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. To your Lord is your end. This is where we are going. Each one of us will die. I will die and have to be before my Lord. يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. On that day, human beings will stand before the Lord of the world. This is where we're going to be. Like the man, he said, I used to always demand justice when I looked at all these people around me. And then I started looking at myself and I started begging for mercy. And really, there's a lot of truth to that, you see, because it's so easy for us just to find the faults of other human beings, it's very difficult to see the fault of yourself. One of the valuable sayings in the New Testament that I tell Christians a lot of times when they start picking on Islam, I say, you know, in your book it says that before you pull the speck out of the eye of your brother, pull the 2x4 out of your own eye. And there's a lot of wisdom in that saying, that people need to look at their own selves and they need to assess where they're at and what are we doing. I mean, somebody came, they were criticizing a book that was written saying it has mistakes in it. Subhanallah. Alhamdulillah, every book other than the book of Allah has mistakes in it. Every single book. Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu said, I looked at the Risala 40 times. The book he wrote, the Risala, I looked at it 40 times and I kept finding mistakes. After 40 times I gave up and said, only Allah's book is perfect and I'm just going to put it out for the people. Now somebody told me the other day, he said, I looked at my book twice after they sent it to the press, and I thought of Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu, shattana ma baynahuma. But that's where we're at. So this idea of having a deep taqwa, really of having a taqwa. When I was in Mauritania, and I'll tell you this story, and I haven't told this story publicly, but I'll tell you this story. My teacher there, Murabbir Hajj, who really, I have never met somebody that embodies the spirit of Islam more than this human being. Because he's somebody that, he's 92 years old, and since the time he was a child, he was given to worship of Allah and to studying. And at about the age of 20 years old, he begged his mother permission to make Hajj on foot during a time when Mauritania, the people were wearing leather on their backs in order to survive because they were so poor. And his mother gave him permission with the promise that he would come back. And he walked from Mauritania to Sudan. And when he got to Sudan, he sat with the ulama there. And he told me that once a Sudanese man told him, he said, Sharif, ta'al. And he wanted to show him something, and it was a silent, it was a film, it was an outdoor cinema, a silent film. And I said, what was it? And he said, there were two giant pictures of men, and they were shooting each other. And he said, I said, what did you do? He said, I said, A'udhu billah, and I left it, which is fitrah. And then he went to the thing he remembered that he told me, the Egyptians, when they're amazed at something, they say, Ya Salam. And then he went to the Haram and he prayed in the Haram and made his Hajj, and he walked from Mecca to Medina, and he spent some time in the Mujawara, and then he went back to Mauritania on foot, and he began teaching, and he's been teaching there for over 70 years. His habit every day is to get up about 4 hours before Fajr and to begin making tahajjud. And when he recites the Quran, he weeps from the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then at Fajr he goes and he walks to the masjid. At 92 years old, he walks like a young man. I was there last year. And he calls the adhan himself, and then he leads the prayer. And he does his tahajjud for maybe 3 or 4 hours. For the prayer he recites from Juz Amma, because he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man ya'ummakum falyukhaffif. Whoever leads the prayer amongst you, let him shorten the prayer. And then he sits from Fajr and he teaches until Dhuhr. And students come and he teaches until Dhuhr. He goes and he has lunch and has a short nap. And then he gets up after and teaches until Asr. He goes and he makes the Asr prayer and then teaches until Isha. And people come and wake him up in the night, and he gets up and he teaches. And this has been his life for over 70 years. This is, and thousands of Muslims have studied with him from all over North Africa and West Africa. And one of the things, I was once in his presence, and he's a Bedouin man, and his robe had some dirt on it. And it occurred to me that the hadith, al-tahur shatrul iman, and al-nadhafatu min al-iman, it just crossed my heart. And at that point he put down his book and he looked at me and he smiled and he said, Hamza, asma'ta al-hadith al-badadatu min al-iman? have you heard of the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that badada is from iman? And I said, I've never heard that. And he said, go get the qamus and we'll look up badada. And he had me look up badada, and it was a word that meant somebody that doesn't particularly care